It turns out that, just 2 days ago, Zhang Yi and his group had left the shelter to head to their meeting point. The Xiaomiao Mountain subway station was only about 30 kilometers from the shelter. So they arrived at the planned location shortly. Xingtian and the others had been waiting there for some time. As Zhang Yi got off, Xingtian and his group ran over enthusiastically. Their flattery barely concealed. Zhang Yi felt a bit speechless, despite repeatedly telling them to bring fewer people. Each group had brought at least 10 or so members. If everyone did this, there'd be thousands by the time they reached Blizzard City. Xiao Honglian shrugged with a helpless expression, saying, "We can't help it, we've been beaten so badly that we feel uneasy without more people." Zhang Yi understood. After all, with the apocalyptic chaos, they'd been in constant conflict. They were likely traumatized, so he respected their caution. Just as Zhang Yi was about to head to the subway entrance, Xiao Honglian called him back and asked if he could store their vehicles in his private space to prevent them from getting damaged in the cold. With a wave of his hand, Zhang Yi instantly stored all the vehicles. As a small favor for their complete trust in him, the group approached the subway entrance, which was already blocked by snow. However, that was no problem for them. Xu Chunlei made a show of it, raising his hands and shouting, "Blow away the snow." In the next second, the snow on the ground shifted to the sides, clearing a narrow path. Then, Uncle led the way inside, flashlight in hand, saying, "I'll go first, you all follow me. I'm tough and can take a hit." The others had no objections, and so they followed him in. Their caution was due to the lingering fears from past zombie attacks. They soon reached the station platform, where an electronic sign indicated an hour until the next train. This showed that Blizzard City still had control over many things. With time to spare, Zhang Yi decided to discuss DQ's purpose with them. Surprisingly, he learned some useful information from Xiao Honglian. Dachu aimed to unify forces against external threats and mutant creatures. Zhang Yi was a bit surprised. He understood the mutant creatures, having tamed one himself. But external threats? Who would be capable of invading, given the whole planet was frozen? Xiao Honglian, a former police officer, had a broader view and explained that while large-scale wars wouldn't happen, small skirmishes in border areas hadn't stopped. Zhang Yi found it hard to process. Such national matters were beyond his capabilities. Yet, he resolved that if he were needed for the greater good, he wouldn't hesitate to act. At that moment, a rustling noise interrupted their conversation, and they saw a faint light deep within the subway. After a while, a rumbling sound reached them, and everyone looked toward the subway entrance, feeling both tense and excited. In the face of the unknown, everyone felt similarly. Soon, a uniquely designed subway train stopped in front of them. Yet, only the door in front of Zhang Yi opened. Out stepped a stunning blonde girl. But as Zhang Yi looked at her, he felt a chill run down his spine. Just then, Lu Karen whispered to him, "Boss, she's not human, she's a robot." Zhang Yi finally understood why he felt uneasy. The conductor greeted everyone with a bow, saying, "Welcome aboard Blizzard Train number 23. Please proceed inside and take your seats." Not long ago, after Zhang Yi and his group settled in their seats, the train started heading to the next station. Due to the lengthy trip, Kair and Karen soon fell asleep. But Zhang Yi was wide awake, full of energy, and calculating how to create opportunities for the girls to snatch some valuable items from Blizzard City. The train stopped and started several times, picking up more passengers. With each new group, the atmosphere in the carriage grew colder. Clearly, these people were tough survivors from the bloody conflicts at Lion Mountain. Zhang Yi couldn't help but remark on it, though Xingtian and the others gave him odd looks, thinking, if these people are demons, then Zhang Yi must be Satan himself. The train eventually reached a brightly lit platform, and Zhang Yi understood that they must have arrived at Blizzard City, the only place still capable of maintaining equipment. With a faint smile, he stood up, saying, "Let's go see what this city of the future really looks like." The others stood as well, though their eyes betrayed a sense of unease and tension. As Zhang Yi stepped off the train, he noticed that all the carriages were filled with people. They eyed each other warily, casting cold, calculating looks. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a palpable killing intent that made Zhou Kair and Lu Karen feel anxious. Fortunately, Zhang Yi stepped in front of them, offering some relief. Zhang Yi deliberately slowed his pace, allowing Xiao Honglian and the others to lead. He knew that the shot hits the bird that sticks out, and those leading were often the first targets. Although he tried to keep a low profile, he couldn't escape a few sharp looks, indirectly confirming that these people were strong enough to sense his presence. The person with the most intense killing aura was a bald man, the leader of Day City, a region that often clashed with Tianhai City. Xiao Honglian quickly informed Zhang Yi, saying, "That man, Sun Jianming, is the leader of Day City. He's had several run-ins with Tianhai at sea but never gained the upper hand." Zhang Yi calmly replied, "No need to deal with them yet. We'll handle things in Blizzard City first." Somehow, these words reassured everyone. However, the Days group misinterpreted Zhang Yi's lack of response as a sign of weakness. Sun Jianming sneered, saying, "Looks like our intel was correct. Tianhai really did fall in a major battle. And it said Wei Dingai even died in it. This pale-faced boy here must be the new leader of the Chaoyu base." Another woman from a rival faction chimed in. Tianhai was once so prosperous. And now its people are dwindling. What a waste of such a prime location. Another man's greedy eyes glinted as he added, "Since that's the case, they might as well give up their resources and land." The three who spoke were all from Days City. The red-haired woman, Bu Hongdi, had single-handedly taken down a small organization. The man in the wool hat was Chen Liangyu, a mysterious figure who rarely interacted with others. The bald man, Sun Jianming, also controlled a port in Days but was often bullied at sea by Wei Dingai. Zhang Yi had no interest in their petty conflicts, he just wanted to handle the matters in Blizzard City quietly. But if these people caused any trouble, Zhang Yi would make sure they wouldn't live to see the next day's sunrise. Outside the subway station, a squad of enforcers stood in formation. Though they didn't look as elite as a special forces team, their authority was palpable, intimidating to any regular person. Fortunately, Zhang Yi had already learned about these individuals from Bai Li Chongqing. He knew they were the Yan Yun Defense Corps, responsible for maintaining order in Blizzard City, so he wasn't too surprised. Meanwhile, a woman in the crowd licked her lips, eyes sparkling, saying, "Wow, so many handsome men here. I'd love a taste of each of them." A nearby man scoffed in response. "Everyone says the soldiers here are elites, but I don't see what's so special." Just then, a man stepped out from behind the guards, each step echoing loudly on the ground. Zhang Yi frowned, wondering if someone in Jiangnan district was truly so brazen, but he quickly realized they were just trying to assert their authority over them. This man was none other than Tu Yunli, head of the Jiangnan Regional Unity Department. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and even a passing glance felt like being sliced by a blade. Zhang Yi couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. This man's aura was intense, comparable to the best military commanders. Zhang Yi knew he had to be extra careful on this trip. With that thought, he subtly stepped back, blending into the crowd. Tu Yunli then addressed them. "Welcome to Jianlin District Headquarters. I'm Captain Tu Yunli, responsible for your reception." He raised a finger, saying, "Blizzard City has strict rules. I hope none of you engage in any conflicts. If you violate the city's principles, you'll face serious punishment, no matter who you are." Tu Yunli's tone was harsh, establishing the rules right off the bat. Zhang Yi understood that this was a show of force to keep the visitors in line. Sending Tu Yunli was enough proof of how serious the situation was. After all, in the chaos following the apocalypse, many regions had established their dominance through brutal and often inhumane means. Without a strong figure to keep order, this meeting would be pointless. Tu Yunli, however, seemed disappointed. He had hoped to provoke someone, but no one dared respond to his intimidating display, leaving him a bit bored. After he left, a young woman in a uniform approached Zhang Yi and his group. Introducing herself as their host for the meeting, she politely invited them to follow her to the guest house for a rest, adding that the Blizzard City rules would be sent to their phones, emphasizing that breaking them would have serious consequences. Zhang Yi smiled, saying, "Well, we'll be in your care." He followed her to the city center. Although it was the heart of the city, the streets were deserted except for soldiers with guns. Curious, Zhang Yi asked, "Where are all the ordinary people?" The hostess replied, "At this hour, everyone is working. There's a strict policy here. They must work 14 hours to secure their right to survive in the city." Zhang Yi was visibly shocked and asked, "But what about the elderly and children who can't work?" She smiled, saying, "In such cases, family members must contribute enough to make up for them. Otherwise, they won't have the right to live here." Liu Karen was taken aback. He had never imagined Blizzard City could be so ruthless. Finally feeling the true harshness of the apocalypse, Zhang Yi, however, calmly told Karen, "No need to be surprised. The policy makes sense. Even if they have ample resources, they're not unlimited. To stay, you have to prove your value." Zhou K'er, meanwhile, raised a deeper question. But how does this policy allow for newcomers? Otherwise, in 100 years, Blizzard City could end up a ghost town. The hostess replied nonchalantly, "We have birth quotas, couples who can provide greater value or encouraged to have more children. That way, the problem is solved." Zhou K'er was left speechless, unsure how to respond to such a policy. Once inside, they noticed that every area was heavily guarded, giving the place an open-air prison vibe. Each of them was assigned a private room, which was a relief. Otherwise, tensions could easily have flared up. Zhang Yi lay on his bed, Deep in thought, he wanted to ask where Bai Li Chongqing was staying, as he knew he could gain valuable information from him. Just then, Xiao Honglian and others came to his room, looking to discuss their strategy for the next day. Xiao Honglian spoke up first, saying, "Zhang Yi, I noticed that we from Tianhai are outnumbered. That's not a good sign. And the other organizations seem to have several times more superpowered members than us." Xingtian added, "It's worse than that. I sensed quite a few unfriendly glances among them." Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. He had already sensed this. Based on his observations, it seemed that the zombie crisis had likely leaked, and now everyone wanted a piece of their resources. Xiao Honglian was frustrated, saying, "We all know how strong Tianhai used to be. But because of that woman Yuan Kongye, we're in this vulnerable position." However, Zhang Yi remained calm. It wasn't that he underestimated the threats but rather that he knew they were in Blizzard City, where open hostility was unlikely. So, he gave a strict order, until he fully understood the region's real purpose. No one was to engage with other organizations. This instruction helped Xiao Honglian and the others hold back, though they still worried about the other groups being aggressive. Zhang Yi reassured them with a smile, his eyes glinting. "I've considered that, but our main focus is on tomorrow's big meeting. We'll handle everything else once we're back in Tianhai." The group, following Zhang Yi's lead, had no further objections and left his room. At that moment, Zhou K'er and Lu Karen returned, asking if they could stay with Zhang Yi as the day's events had left them shaken. Seeing their fearful expressions, Zhang Yi had no choice but to agree. He then pulled out his phone and called Bai Li Chongqing, hoping he might be nearby. Surprisingly, Bai Li answered and agreed to meet him at a bar, even sending him a temporary electronic pass that would allow unrestricted movement within the city. Zhang Yi informed the girls that he'd be heading out and instructed them to stay and rest, promising to return once he was done. The two knew who Zhang Yi was going to meet, so they obediently promised to stay and wait for him, even joking about keeping his bed warm. As Zhang Yi prepared to leave, he noticed that some others in the building seemed to have the same idea, though they were advised to stay indoors. These leaders weren't the type to follow orders easily. Just as Zhang Yi was about to exit, a woman blocked his path, asking, "Excuse me, Mr. Zhang Yi, where are you going? We have a strict curfew starting at midnight." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "I'm going out." The hostess grew more anxious. "Didn't I warn you? It's best not to leave the building. If the city defense patrol finds you, there'll be trouble." Zhang Yi interrupted her. "Don't worry, I've read every word of Blizzard City's rules and won't break them." His smile faded as he added, "Remember this. I was invited by the region. I'm not someone's subordinate, let alone a prisoner." Ignoring the woman, Zhang Yi continued out of the building. Had she known his true identity, she wouldn't have dared to stop him. Outside, he noticed fresh footprints in the snow, indicating others had left recently. Smirking, Zhang Yi thought to himself, "Seems there are plenty of people here with special privileges." Meanwhile, in the command office, Tu Yunli was briefing Zhu Zheng about the scene at the subway station. Zhu Zheng's expression turned serious after hearing that out of the 13 cities they had invited, only 12 had representatives present. Tu Yunli explained that their private train had stopped at Linhai City, but no one had shown up, and they were still investigating why. Zhu Zheng, though not visibly angry, was troubled. Linhai was a coastal city with 6 sizable organizations, so the absence of any representatives seemed strange. He asked Tu Yunli to try contacting them again, unable to believe that all 6 groups would simply vanish. But Tu Yunli reported that they had already tried, and there had been no response, as if the people had disappeared. This increased Zhu Zheng's unease, and he resolved to send someone to investigate in person, despite doubting it would yield much. Still, ensuring the artist gathering would proceed smoothly was his top priority. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi, following the directions given to him, arrived in the area. After passing through the main gate, where guards initially blocked his path, he presented the electronic pass Bai Li Chongqing had sent him. The guards immediately shifted their tone, inviting him to enter respectfully. As Zhang Yi proceeded inside, he was taken aback by the scene before him, towering buildings and neon lights lighting the streets. It felt like he had stepped back into a pre-apocalyptic city. Yet he knew such luxury was only for a select few. When Zhang Yi arrived at the password bar, he recognized it immediately by its distinctive look. However, the vehicles parked outside were snowmobiles like the ones military commanders would use. And the patrons all had a fierce, hardened presence, giving it the vibe of a veterans club. At the entrance, a guard stopped him, asking, "Are you a member here?" Zhang Yi, feeling a bit exasperated, called Bai Li Chongqing to clear things up. After a quick phone conversation, the guard's demeanor became respectful. "Apologies, sir, I didn't realize you were a VIP guest's friend." Zhang Yi simply noted to himself how beneficial Bai Li Chongqing's status was in Blizzard City. As soon as he entered, A bunny girl approached him and asked, "Are you Mr. Zhang Yi? Captain Bai Li sent me to guide you." Confirming his identity, she led him to an elevator, making small talk along the way. She was clearly hoping to ingratiate herself with a VIP, dreaming of someday living within the inner district. But Zhang Yi, uninterested in flattery, ignored her attempts at conversation, causing her to feel slightly embarrassed. The elevator arrived on the 13th floor, and the bunny girl gestured. "We've arrived, Mr. Zhang Yi. The person waiting for you is inside." Zhang Yi stepped out, only to find himself facing a strikingly handsome, flamboyant man he had never seen before. Zhang Yi's mind raced. Had he been led to the wrong place? Little did he know, he had already fallen into someone else's trap. Just a moment ago, Zhang Yi cautiously glanced around the room. After confirming that only one other person was present, he awkwardly said, "Sorry, the staff must have led me to the wrong place. I'll leave now." But in the next moment, something unexpected happened. It turned out that the man's name was Deng Shentong, and the bunny girl from earlier had actually been ordered by him to bring Zhang Yi here. Realizing this, Zhang Yi looked at Deng with calm eyes, saying, "We don't know each other, right? You went to a lot of trouble to get me here, so I doubt you just wanted to meet me casually." At this point, the man set down his wine glass and said to himself, "You must be Zhang Yi, right? I was just curious about the kind of person Bailey Chongqing would personally greet. But don't misunderstand me, I've never acknowledged him as a captain. I've just heard a bit about you." Seeing this, Zhang Yi became more cautious. If this person didn't even respect Bailey Chongqing, it meant his status and strength were likely on par with Bailey's. Since he didn't yet know Deng's true intentions, Zhang Yi decided to probe a little. "May I ask who you are?" The man, with a self-assured look, replied, "My name is Deng Shentong. Surely, you've heard of my legend." This left Zhang Yi stunned, wondering, could this guy be a fool? But seeing his confident demeanor, Zhang Yi decided to just awkwardly smile and say, "It's an honor, Lord Deng, I've heard much about you." However, Zhang Yi's dismissive tone made Deng Shentong unhappy. "You haven't heard of my name? Then you can't be that strong," Deng said. Hearing this, Zhang Yi didn't want to explain further. He had only come here to meet Bailey Chongqing, yet somehow this self-absorbed person had appeared out of nowhere. So he turned to leave. But just then, a hand suddenly blocked his shoulder. Reacting quickly, Zhang Yi instinctively struck out to remove the hand. But surprisingly, Deng easily deflected his move. Zhang Yi's counter was not slow, so this man must be quite skilled. Deng then smiled slightly. "Mr. Zhang, there's no need to be so tense. I mean you no harm. I'm just curious why Bailey Chongqing is meeting you alone." But at that moment, Zhang Yi was stunned. He seemed to see two identical Deng Shentongs. Could he have a twin? But he dismissed that thought the next second because he sensed a familiar spatial fluctuation, similar to his own. Suddenly, over 20 mirages appeared in the room, and voices started echoing from all directions. "As far as I know, Zhang Yi, you have space-based abilities. Could you demonstrate them for me?" At this point, Zhang Yi still couldn't figure out what Deng was up to, so he continued watching him closely. Seeing this, Deng finally revealed his intentions. He said he was the captain of the Celestial team and that if he found Zhang Yi's abilities impressive, he would consider making Zhang Yi a substitute for the team. This made Zhang Yi visibly angry, although he wasn't sure what Deng's exact abilities were. Deng's high-handed attitude toward him was enough to ignite his temper. So, Zhang Yi prepared himself, since Deng wanted to see his skills. He would let him witness the power of his divine abilities firsthand.